Yeah, I do, and I kind of roll it back a little bit because I love the discussion we're having here, and I think one of the struggles that a lot of our commercial institutions and certainly government agencies are having trouble with, right, is determining where to start. Like, hey, I want to do some cool things and artificial intelligence, but I don't even have a modern, data control plane to do that for all my data. So culturally, I've got my own perspectives on this, and I might add afterwards. But Max, I really like your opinion of, with companies you've worked with and other institutions you've talked to in all of your travels. What does it mean to be a data-driven company? And do you see that there are some specific cultural characteristics of a company that do this well in the marketplace?
Oh yeah, that is such a great point you bring up there, Alan. One reaction I very often get from senior leadership in companies when I speak with them is this exasperation caused by what they feel is a total disconnect between, on one hand, what the state of the art AI enables, and on the other hand, the incredibly mundane things are actually crippling their business, right? So like I was talking to a CEO of a hospital system recently, and she said that it's, on one hand, Max, you're showing me these videos of how you can use machine learning to democratize healthcare and get better diagnoses fast and stuff, but we have like 7 incompatible databases in my system where we even store the patient records. So if some doctor, there's an emergency and you want to find out, is this patient allergic to X, whatever, you can't find it. So they feel this exasperation, which I think you're alluding to here. Like, what should they choose? Should they focus on doing the new, cool, inspiring, high-tech thing, or on just digitizing this ridiculously outdated thing with 7 incompatible journal systems of which 2 are on paper? I think the answer has got to be both. If you're a large company, it would be ridiculous to just look at the advanced forward-looking thing and still have these incompatible databases and not even have access to the old information you own, right? But if you, on the other hand, if you only play catch up and do these really lame things, which you should have done 20 years, your predecessor should have done 20 years ago, that's also not the right choice, because then you're losing your competitive edge. You're going to fail to inspire your employees, your customers, and your investors. But if that's all you talk about, yeah, the great new plan for our company is to finally make all our pieces of paper in our filing cabinets digital. Yay, snooze. So I think both have to happen. And I'm curious if you have some thoughts about why it is that's taking companies so long to do the obvious stuff.
And I love what you said there, Max. I completely agree. And that's what we encourage all of our customers, right? Regardless of industry or sector, for them to do, right? Is to modernize their data plane and really understand their data sets better, structured, unstructured data, regardless of where they live, especially now that we have all these new, sources of content coming in, IoT sensors and lots of other data creation sources in place. So it's like, let's wrangle that in, but let's also go figure out. I love what you said there too, because I always ask the question from the leadership team, right? When I go into an account and have a conversation, I typically want to go talk to the CEO, understand what their top 3 priorities are. And hey, in those top 3 priorities, if you could change it by 1%, what impact would it have? And most of the time, it's a huge impact to the business downstream.
Yeah.
So let's go use artificial intelligence many times to go solve and impact that biggest problem of the business. And I kind of look at it like Dell Technologies. We are a huge data-driven company. Anybody that's been around Dell probably knows Michael Stoplight reports everything every day and uses artificial intelligence all around Dell Technologies, not just for our internal uses and internal processes, but in frameworks to go help customers get this done and to make our products better. So I think it's all of that combined. I think the biggest challenge that I see is more cultural in nature,
Yeah.
right? Internal of IT and business just communicating, right? Being aligned and being able to speak the same language is a big challenge. So many times we come in and act as that universal translator. I'm sure you do the same thing with people you speak to, right? Of like, hey, let's get on a baseline here. And then we think about it, right, as how are they going to use that shared infrastructure they have? Because you gave a great example of training a model sitting on a compute, right? All the stuff I do from my day-to-day perspective in PowerEdge, right, and all of our server technology. And how do we use that as a competitive differentiator, since
Yeah.
we know exactly what you said there, the faster, it's not necessarily the big eating the small, it's the fast, outpacing the slow.
Yeah, and if I can I really agree with this, and to just add to it a bit, if you, I think I'm going to make a comment now, not about technology, but about psychology. So if you have an organization that would obviously benefit from getting all their stuff digitized in a secure and uniform way, right? And they haven't for a long time. It's not because no one thought of it. It's because there are all these psychological and cultural barriers, right? And so I think sometimes you can use a bold vision for what you can do with machine learning, actually, to persuade people to do this easy stuff anyway. If you think back to the 1960s, many people have been saying for a long time, wouldn't it be great if we educated people more in STEM? Wouldn't that be great? Didn't happen. Then John F. Kennedy comes out and with a literal moonshot and said, we want to go to the moon and do the other things, not because it is easy, but because it is hard, like Harvard Yard, and this moonshot, the equivalent of doing some advanced AI in your company, right, galvanized people so much that they went ahead and did all the no-brainer stuff. Massive increase in STEM education in the US. That's why Silicon Valley is here now, right? And it broke that, it overcame all those cultural barriers between different government agencies and companies that didn't want to talk with each other. You would have thought they should have done it anyway, but it took a really bold goal to do the easy stuff. And I think similarly, if you are in a government organization in Canada, if you can articulate a really inspiring goal for what you're going to do with advanced machine learning, and it just happens to require as a precondition that you also get your act together with data access, then you'll get the data access as part of it. And then you'll also get then everybody who wanted that is going to be super excited anyway. And now the doctor can also do all the low tech things happier. So maybe the moonshot can really, so rather than choose between the two, what I'm kind of saying is going for the ambitious thing can actually help also with that other thing that you should have done long ago.
Can't agree more. That's absolutely what I've seen in all of our accounts, right? And it's usually a bold leader that's going to take that and make that speech. I love the loved it there.
Jonathan, did you want to do the follow-up on that?
Oh, I thought you were going to ask me a follow-up question. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. No, go. I will ask you a follow-up question, because you have seen this in organizations, and often fairly complex, large organizations, but also really small ones that are just, and they do have sort of the paper historical workloads that they're trying to figure out how to leverage, and in effort of some of their bolder goals that they want to move forward on.
Yeah. So I mean, I think there's different strokes for different folks. I think those big companies, they need the John F. Kennedy speech to say, we need to go and do something because it's hard. Because in a 5,000 company, it takes a lot to move that company forward. But we also have seen where in a smaller company, say, like, look, let's find somewhere small where there's a low lift, where we can do something for a small effort that's not too risky, that may have some great benefits, right? And we've seen how, an investment of $25,000 or $50,000 suddenly generates more value than the actual investment itself, by enabling the people to do their jobs easier, better, more effective, make critical decisions, take some of the guesswork out of what it is they're doing. So I think across the board, there has been a lot of fear of burning too much money on things, on those big visions. There are definitely the companies that should be the risk takers. And I think there's also opportunities for smaller companies to take less risk and find great value with just a little bit of encouragement.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
For sure. So we are getting close to time this afternoon, and I want to make sure we have appropriate time to wrap up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask sort of a two-part question to each of the panelists, just to give us your final thoughts, and then we can close off for the afternoon, and everybody can go and solve the problem with the alcohol instead of creating the problem with the alcohol. Because it is Friday afternoon after all. So, and I guess the follow-up question is to each of you, what are you doing personally to keep pace with some of the changes that are going on in this space? It's obviously, there's a lot of organizations, a lot of institutions that are trying to prepare us for this next 5 years of rapid change that are going to continue to accelerate. So first part of the question is, what are you doing to keep pace? And second part of the question, which actually came from one of the audience members, they sent this in because it was a reference that Max made towards the end of his talk. What is your favorite, dystopian AI end of the world thing to binge on Netflix this weekend? So I'm going to start with you, Alan, and then go to Jonathan and go to Max. Oh, you're on mute, Alan. Hey, we hadn't done that the whole time. Somebody.
I know. It was inevitable. We weren't going to make it in the year we've been in, right? Without one mute incident.
Yeah.
At least we acted fast. So I'm going to start with the second question first. So Westworld, hands down. If you haven't watched it, you have to watch it. Phenomenal series, adult series, so please don't mix that with your young ones, but phenomenal series. If you liked Game of Thrones and you love dystopian futures and kind of what could happen with artificial intelligence once we reach that singularity, there you go. Good entertainment. But I'm just like Max, much more optimistic about technology, just like Michael, as opposed to what that represented, but good science fiction. As far as keeping up on technology, I look at it in a couple areas in artificial intelligence. One, following visionaries just like Max in the industry and understanding what research they're doing across the board. The second thing is I work extremely close with a number of partners. Hint, hint to our audience, Converge. Jonathan's leads a brilliant team to really help you solve tough AI problems, right? So you have a great guide there. If you don't have some internal teams to get it done, or even if you do, you need some support or assistance, hey, grab Jonathan and Converge and they'll help you get it done. So I learn a lot from my partners and practices such as my relationship with Jonathan and yourself, Emily. And I'd say third is I work very closely with all of the merchant silicon vendors. So think about AMD and Intel, and certainly with NVIDIA's kind of leader in the market of massive parallelism, right? And doing a lot with GPU accelerated workloads, because I'm trying to, when I think about this overall, and we've talked about a lot of high level aspects, I love where Max and I kind of took it at the end of like, where do I get started? And hey, what can I change by 1%? Because those are the questions that I get asked by our customers all the time. How do I start? And there's lots of great deep learning frameworks to get started today. I don't have to wait, right? And even better than that, there's a whole set of NVIDIA is probably the most advanced in this right now in our partnership with the Inception program, where they've curated a set of software ISVs to go solve those problems for you. So even if you don't have them, hey, we have a lot of sensor data. What's the most viable sensor that's deployed out in the world? It's a camera. Can I use intelligent video analytics to go solve a problem in manufacturing, to look for quality control problems? Just think about those things in every single industry or vertical. So I look at it in kind of those three tranches, and I try to balance myself between those three and make it practical for our customers.
Thanks, Alan. I appreciate that. Jonathan?
You know, I have to second Alan in terms of Westworld. Just great production quality. Just, you know, it's a dirty joy to just watch that. I'd say what I follow in terms is a bit more in the weeds than Alan. But, you know, Papers with Code is one of my, you know, things I just love to just browse and read. Of course, the archive, ML News. There's lots of different blogs out there that I just look for, you know, what's new, what's interesting, what's coming out, and talking to our clients. I think the greatest inspiration is talking to somebody who has a problem that doesn't have a canned solution already, and working with them to find out ways that we can generate value out of the information they're collecting. Just coming up with brand new ways to use machine learning or AI to solve problems.
Thanks, Jonathan. I appreciate it. Max, final thoughts to you.
In terms of something to watch with popcorn, my wife and I usually cringe a lot when we watch sci-fi about AI. It's just for the things I like that are very unrealistic. Something I cringed remarkably little over actually was Fox has had this 8-part series called Next that's been playing that you can get on digital download, NEXT, which I actually really enjoyed. It's about I'm not going to spill the beans here, but basically it's a little bit like the beginning of my book Life 3.0, where there is an AI that starts to try to take over the world. And I think this is really interesting because I love the idea of democracy, and this sort of thing is the biggest threat I think our democracy faces. We keep talking about how the biggest threat is some dude we don't like, in an authoritarian country. But if there's always limits to how much power individual humans or small groups can exert over the whole planet because of the limits of the tech they have, right? Whereas if you imagine for just a moment, just your least favorite leader, don't tell me who it is, but just close your eyes and see their face, right? And then you imagine that this person now gets access to this exponentially improving AI that can give them power over the whole earth. How would you feel about that? So I don't feel so great about this, exactly, because I'm a big democracy fan. So what I'm actually, the second part of it, or the first part of your question, now that I answered the second, is my day job. I'm actually working a lot on thinking, how can we use AI to strengthen democracy? I think democracy works great if we have a shared understanding of what the truth is when we all go and vote. And I already mentioned how AI is very effectively used for manipulation. But we actually have a really good truth-finding systems that we, Homo sapiens, have developed over the centuries. It's called science, right? So I'm very interested in how can we take some of the ways in which the scientific truth-finding enterprise is working much better than the media is working right now, and import them into the media landscape. How can we build AI tools that help people automatically discover not just fake news, false statements, but more importantly, other kinds of bias that are more subtle, like omissions and et cetera. And it's a problem that has all things I love. There's massive amounts of data there, a lot of coding, a lot of science, and the goal of this is to just make tools like this that can be given away for free, which is because to anyone who wants them, because that's our mission as a university.
I love that. Thanks, Max. And actually, what I did read about the app that you guys are developing. Just for the audience, again, what is the name of the app that you have on sort of debiasing the news?
What we have now is something you can find at improvethenews.org.
Okay.
If you have an iPhone, you can go to the App Store and get Improve the News. This just lets you break out of your filter bubble by moving in some sliders and seeing how stories are covered from different parts of the political spectrum, which can be quite interesting. But we're building all sorts of other tools that we want to add to this. So if you check it out later this summer when I'm having more time to work on it, I hope we can give you some more AI for good.
I appreciate that. Thanks so much, Max. Thank you very much for the time this afternoon. It's been fantastic. Jonathan, thanks for your insights as our resident practitioner on the call. And Alan and to the entire Dell Technologies team, thank you so much for sponsoring this event and bringing Max to speak to our customers in the public sector. We really appreciate it. And I hope everybody has a fantastic weekend and stay safe.
And thank you for making it all so interesting.
Thanks. It was fun.
Thank you.